I'd like to welcome you to this Meet the Candidates event. This is a joint event. Most of the heavy lifting has been done by the Westleigh Progress Association, but it's also in combination with the Thornleigh Residents Association and the Pennant Hills District Civic Trust. So we have completely covered the postcode of 2120 and a little bit into West Pennant Hills 2125. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country, and we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we have this gathering today, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and also extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be with us today. The concept of reconciliation with the Aboriginal community, I think, is somewhat of a journey, and I would say that I'm in a very different place to where I was 10 years ago and 5 years ago, and I hope we can all continue on that journey for a peaceful and amicable reconciliation. Okay, we are trying tonight to have a combination of letting the candidates have a little bit of room to express their platform, and also a reasonable amount of facilitation or mediation or control from Dana and I, so that no one talks too long, neither the presenters or the members of the public who ask questions, but also wanting to have a little bit of room to move, so that if people have passionate things they'd like to talk about, we get a little bit of passion in there without it being so controlled that we only get the political speak. So that's the goal for tonight. We're going to start by giving each of the candidates who are joining us 5 minutes to give their initial pitch, and then we're going to move to some questions that we've already received online, and then we're going to open the floor to people who might want to ask questions and sort of bounce off what other people are saying. Instead of always having the same order, we're going to try to roll the order so you don't always have the same person first and the same person second and the same person last. So the initial order for the 5 minutes of sort of initial pitch is Emme Heyde first, then Philip Ruddock. There are two mayoral candidates. Then Janelle McIntosh, who's representing the Labor Party, Monica Ball, who's representing the Greens, and Sallianne McClelland, who's representing the Liberal Party. And it is quite likely that other candidates from those groups and independents may also be on the call, and we're willing to let other people join in throughout the call, not during this first initial part, but we really just want to hear from the candidates how they're going. So Emma, can you please start? You've got 5 minutes, and Dana has a bell. We'll give you a 30-second warning at 4.5, and then start donging continuously a little bit after 5. So we give you a big hint. Emma, please take away. If you're not, sorry, just a housekeeping thing. If you're not actually speaking, it's usually a good idea to mute yourself just in case there's dogs or noisy kids or traffic in the background. Not essential, but usually a good idea. Okay, Emma, please fire away.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Dana. Thanks so much for the opportunity, and I'm really grateful to the two civic trusts for putting this on, because I think it's really, really important that candidates get to listen to the community, and the community gets to ask whatever it likes of current councillors and current mayors and prospective ones as well. So I'll acknowledge country as well, and also acknowledge that First Nations residents have really made a huge contribution over the last 4 years to what council does. And I think that's enriched life here in the Bushland Shire for all of us. And they do that just as volunteers, just in their own time, just because they're lovely, generous people who know that First Nations culture makes a difference to all of us. So yeah, gratitude. As Andrew said, I'm Emme Heyde, and I'd like to be your next mayor. I stood for council in 2017 to do a few different things, basically to ensure our neighbourhoods were protected from overdevelopment and to look after the environment. I've still got the how to vote from 2017, and I said that I would stop overdevelopment spoiling our neighbourhoods, reduce plastic waste, support cost-saving clean energy, preserve bushland for ourselves and our children, and create a more community-focused council. And I meant it. I really did. I really have tried to do those collection of things for the last 4 years. So I'm proud that I have achieved a lot of those goals. I helped to get Cherrybrooks buses back, and I've worked really hard to raise awareness for the need for affordable housing. I've championed fair rents for our community preschools, and I've really improved the quality of design of apartment buildings. I've been the driving force behind innovative ways to reduce plastic waste and greenhouse gas emissions. And I think this term of council has done a really fantastic job of consulting with the community in new ways. I think that's it's something to be proud of. I've done little things too. I've made practical neighbourhood improvements like getting the pedestrian crossing back in Beecroft and a drinking fountain, including a little dog bowl at the Campbell Park Oval in West Pennant Hills. I worked with the community on plans to resurface a dangerous road, Norfolk Road, and I got funding for much needed footpaths in Cherrybrook and North Epping. And look, those probably seem like really small things, but they're really, really important to the people I represent. So they're really important to me. I really value open, transparent and accountable council. And I genuinely believe that the outcomes are better for everyone when as many people as possible have a say. And I work very hard to make sure that happens. I'm really passionate about maintaining our amazing lifestyle in Hornsby Shire. And I want to make sure that everyone gets to enjoy that opportunity equally. I think you probably know that I put my heart and soul into everything I do for the community, and I've really delivered for thousands of people who've contacted me over the last 4 years. But there's a heap more to do. We need much better recreational areas and opportunity for older kids and teens in particular. We desperately need new ways of avoiding traffic congestion, and we need cheap, clean energy and much stronger support for small business and local businesses, particularly in Pennant Hills. We need to tackle complex issues like finding a middle ground on mountain biking and how we look after the environment at the same time. Difficult conversations about stopping urban sprawl and yet protecting our rural areas. And we've got a long way to go on tourism. We've made a great start though. So I think probably what one of the issues we will talk about tonight is mountain biking. And I feel that, yeah, I've established some really productive relationships with many people who have different perspectives. And I want to continue to participate in this ongoing and complex discussion. I think we can find an outcome where the bush is protected and people on bikes have areas to learn and ride and enjoy. So I've decided to run for mayor in these elections, and this is why. People elected me because they wanted leadership on local issues like waste and overdevelopment. People wanted someone they could really trust, who would work hard on the issues, and people have trusted me to tackle the complex issues with fairness and integrity. So I want the opportunity to serve people of this shire full time as mayor, because just like you do, I really, really love this amazing place we all call home. And I think I've proven just how hard I will work to protect it. Thank you.
Emma, thank you very much. Moving next to Philip Ruddock, the current mayor.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. And Donna, can I say what a pleasure it is to be here? I have to declare a conflict of interest, of course. I'm a member of the Pennant Hills Civic Trust. Hope that won't disqualify me.
No, it doesn't.
Can I share?
The declaration of conflicts of interest are a bit topical at the moment, so a good idea to be extra cautious.
Can I share in the acknowledgement of country and pay my respects to our Indigenous forebears? And can I acknowledge particularly, I think, on this side of Pennant Hills Road, the Ku-ring-gai people, and on the other side, the Dargen. I come to this role as mayor because I was very, very exercised about some of the decisions that have been taken at an earlier point in time. It was after the failed council mergers where Ku-ring-gai Council challenged the proposed merger, which was part underway when this area lost a very significant proportion of its rate base in Epping, Beecroft West, Roseley, Carlingford. The cost, something of the order of $250 million assessed by State Treasury. That amount of money essentially meant that in net terms, we were significantly worse off each year, to the tune, I think, of about $10 million. How do you manage council that has had such a mutilation and continue to be able to produce balanced budgets, essentially to ensure that council doesn't go into debt in the way in which a merged council, which was larger and would have been able to make savings, Central Coast did. Another merged council, Canterbury Bankstown, a 30% rate increase. Your council has been able to work together and collegiately to manage the budget in a sound way. A lot of things we would like to do, we cannot afford, but we seek to establish appropriate priorities and assess what people want most. But I believe passionately that sound financial management is the key to having a successful council. Can I say that I also came to the task having viewed a lot of what I call inappropriate development that had occurred in a council that was under pressure to deliver increased population. That hasn't changed. We still have a government saying to us we have to find places for additional residents. And what we've been doing as a council that works collegiately and together is to identify where that development can occur, and we're looking at a Hornsby CBD. I would like to think that people appreciate, and I think in Emma's comments, she reflected some of this. We have had a council that is collegiate, working together positively on the issues that are important to our community. Affordable housing. If you look at maintaining the integrity of the bushland shire, a significant tree planting program to improve the amenity of our districts. We have had projects that we have worked together to achieve, and I like to think that my leadership in bringing people together with different political perspectives, different views, to be able to work collegiately in the best interests of the people of the Shire is the appropriate way forward. And so I hope that when people have the opportunity to vote in the election in 2.5 weeks' time, they will give me the opportunity to see through on these very important issues that we've been consulting, the development of the Hornsby Park, the issues of developments at Westleigh, which are of fundamental importance to this community, to put together the town centre, to appropriately design and promote our rural lands, to look at a Cherrybrook that will in fact complement the amenity of an area that has been developed particularly well in the past. So I come as a collegiate leader. Hopefully people will endorse a Liberal team that will be part of Hornsby going forward.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Next up, we have Janelle McIntosh. Over to you, Janelle.
Thanks, Andrew and Dana. Nice to be here. I acknowledge the Westleigh Progress Association, the Pennant Hills District Civic Trust and the Thornleigh Neighbourhood Residents Association. Thank you for organising this evening. I too acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Dargen, Ku-ring-gai Aboriginal people, and pay respects to their elders past and present. To those of you who don't know me, I was born and raised in Hornsby Shire, and I've lived in this area for most of my life. I was a councillor 2004 to 2008, and again 2017 to 2021, our current term. And I spent most of my working life working in local government and in not-for-profit organisations. In local government, I've worked in arts and cultural services, in aged and disability development, in partnerships and strategy, and of course in economic development. For my work in partnerships and mentoring, I've won a number of awards, and I've been made an honorary citizen of Seoul in South Korea for my partnership work and international mentoring there. And most recently, the last 6 years, I've run my own consultancy practice, my own small business, working again in local government, but also in aged care and disability services. So I recognise the needs both of small business owners, but also of those with special needs. Manage money for organisations, finding grants, developing projects, managing their communication and strategy. And I like to think that I can bring all of those skills and experience to council for the work that we do. There's a lot to do in Hornsby. I personally wanted to come back to council in 2017 in response, just like the mayor, to this failed amalgamation process, which was disastrous for local government across our state. It was a grand plan, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reform local government, which was spectacularly failed in many councils. And of course, it means that it guides all of our decision-making in the future and all of our financial work as we try and manage the council through this period. I unashamedly campaigned in 2017 with an agenda, and I follow that, as many of my colleagues do, relentlessly. I thought that council needed an economic development strategy and a program. We needed to be working with local businesses, and I raised that at the very first meeting of council in October 2017. I campaigned to bring back a sustainability committee, and we've managed to achieve that. I also felt very strongly that council's communication, engagement and consultation with our community was poor. And I believe we've improved, but I believe we've got lots more to do. We've improved our website, and we've got a dedicated business section on the website, and we've done some very innovative consultation and engagement strategies in this last term of council, but we've got lots more to do in that area. We want to, I adopted a set of public domain guidelines, proposed that to my colleagues, so that we could have some guidelines and strategies within our council that gave the community really clear ideas about what we would be doing in our public domain. The importance of those guidelines is also that if a developer comes along and creates a new development, they need to follow our public domain guidelines. This saves our council money. So I'm coming to the table here with experience in local government, with ideas, with suggestions that will hopefully move us forward, but will also save council money, enabling us to do other things. Another example of that was the playground strategy. I proposed this because I thought we really needed a better strategy of how we managed our playgrounds, how we develop them, how we choose the kinds of things we should have in all of our playgrounds. And so now we've had a wonderful team of consultants in Fiona Robey Consultants come in and develop a wonderful play plan which will guide what we do across the next 10 years. I've worked hard to promote recycling and waste, strong involvement in Reimagine, the annual art prize that we do, and campaign to support waste education for community events, developing an events guide for waste management in all community events, and initiating the sale of pet poo composters in our CRC, and also making sure that people can drop off their pots so they can be recycled at the recycling centre. The other thing I'm really proud of is our street library program. We've initiated a program there where we will have given away, by the time we finish very soon, 50 libraries that will be stretched all across the Shire. Lastly, I just wanted to mention I'm so proud of our Aboriginal recognition. I campaigned for this and initiated this in April 2004 to have this recognition at the beginning of all our council meetings. I initiated the dual naming policy in 2020, the Statement of Reconciliation, and we've now got a revised Aboriginal acknowledgement that's been undertaken in consultation with our local Aboriginal community, in which we adopted last year. I'm looking forward to the future now, to our active transport study, which is going to look at walking and cycling in our Shire, in Westleigh Park, in Hornsby Park, connecting our town centres and our rural areas. I'm looking forward to the development of Hornsby Town Centre and addressing the needs of affordable housing, but also how we emerge from COVID-19 as a Shire and how we can support our local businesses moving forward. And I'm going to stop talking because I can talk for another 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Janelle. Okay, the next two candidates are not sitting members on council. Monica Ball, she doesn't need to disclose a conflict of interest because she's been on the Pennant Hills District Civic Trust for about the last 10 years, but did jump off about 2 weeks ago so that she has no conflict. So Monica, please talk to us.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you everyone for turning up this evening to meet your candidates. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, why I'm standing for council and how I plan to approach my duties once elected. So I am Monica Ball. I'm an advocate for our community and our environment. I've been a resident of Pennant Hills for the last 16 years. I enjoy bike riding, playing tennis at Ruddock Park, bushwalking through our beautiful bushland. I support local businesses, and I wish we had more healthy eateries, and I wish we produced less waste. I basically work, live and play locally. As Andrew mentioned, I've been a committee member of Pennant Hills District Trust for 10 years, where I've contributed countless submissions to council, and I've also had dealings with our state and federal elected officials. I've organised many community cleanup and tree planting events. One of the biggest ones I did was Upper Pies Creek cleanup, which I orchestrated with Sydney Water, Hornsby Council staff, as well as a lovely lady called Katie from Bag Free Pennant Hills. And we organised over 50 people, young and old. We went through the bushland and through the creeks, and everyone just was eagerly pulling out rubbish and plastic from, plastic that was embedded into the soil. So I'm also a fan of the Green Thumbs of Hornsby Shire Facebook group. It now has over 560 local residents who are sharing their skills and surplus. And here I get to contribute my skills in horticulture and landscape design. So why am I running for council? Well, in the 10 years that I've councillors and many mayors, and I note one standout. Never have I seen anyone work for our community and our environment like Emma. Her intelligence, leadership, integrity, commitment, they've all been a standout to me. I'm so inspired by Emma's work, which is why I'm standing. It feels like a natural progression to step on into my community work, and I have the energy, the values, and the smarts required. As your councillor, I will be driven by the value of care for our community and care for our environment. I will seek to understand and represent the needs of the wider community. I will ensure decisions are financially, environmentally, and socially sound. I will help build a stronger, more connected community that is prepared and resilient. I am compassionate, pragmatic, and energised. I care for my personal health and I care for yours. I care for the health of my community and our environment. For this coming election, please vote me in, please vote One Greens. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Very happy for you to finish at 3 minutes, Monica. Thank you very much. I don't know if anyone else watched the Hornsby Career Guide post event last night, but I promise this one will finish a fair bit sooner than that one did. It seemed to go on and on and on. So next up, we have Sallianne McClelland. Sorry.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for hosting this evening's forum, and I too acknowledge country. I'm standing for council because I have lived and worked and volunteered in this community for over 25 years, and everything that I have done to this point leads me to stand to run for council. I'm a strategic event director of over 30 years, a successful fundraiser, sponsorship and grant writer. I'm the New South Wales Local Woman of the Year, Westfield Hornsby Local Hero and a Paul Harris Fellow. And I lead through imagination and motivation and empathy, and I harness the skills around me for common visions. I care about our Hornsby Shire and its future, and I have a track record of delivering for it. I am the inaugural board member of Hornsby Ku-ring-gai Women's Shelter, and I led this vital service to a point that when I stepped down as president, that we were able to purchase a permanent home just 1 year later. In 2020, I led a community initiative mobilising for MOGO, raising over $100,000 for bushfire recovery. The Bushland Shire is my community, and I value the opportunity to represent you as your councillor. From footpaths to state-of-the-art town hall and performance spaces, supporting local business and protecting our natural heritage, delivering our Centennial Park of the North, and committed to improving the opportunity for people to live where they work in an affordable way. I value a community that supports local employment and really good waste management. But I wanted to take tonight's opportunity, given the groups that we're speaking to introduce to you the two phenomenal candidates that I'm running with, who you may be familiar with. And I'd like to take a moment to introduce Martin Dargen, resident of Westleigh.
Thank you very much, Sallianne, and thank you very much for the Westleigh Progress Association and the Pennant Hills City Trust for putting this on. I think it's a great way for everyone to see who is representing or wants to represent.
Martin, you're a little bit soft. Just get a bit closer to the mic and speak up a bit.
Sorry, I've never been told that I haven't spoken up before, so that's the first. Yeah, so I'm a local resident of Westleigh, have lived there for over 20 years. I've been an ex-president of the Thornleigh Thunder Soccer Club. I'm currently on the committee of the baseball club. I'm the chairman of the Westleigh Waterboard Alliance, which is the group and the voice for the residents for the development of Westleigh Park. I'm a cyclist, a mountain biker, and really keen to have both those sports highlighted in Hornsby Council. They're the biggest growth sport that we have, so it'll be great to see the mountain biking community thrive in Hornsby. It's a great opportunity for us not only to showcase this sport, but to generate income for the Hornsby Shire. All three of us are local. We're locals who represent locals. We live, work, play, and socialise in the Hornsby district. 3 years ago, I started my own business. I work from home, and I am absolutely passionate about helping this local community better as a member of our council. I'd like to hand it over to our third candidate, Daniel Dummer, who is also running in this.
I'll be very brief, I'm not sure how much time remains, but I'm very thrilled to be supporting Sallianne and Martin in this area, maybe a minute or so.
Daniel, we need you to speak up as well, please.
We'll just get a bit closer to the mic.
Is that okay?
That's better.
Thank you. So I'm a local in Pennant Hills and I work in Hornsby. I lead a mentor program for young people in finishing off high school to figure out what they want to do after school and to build the study skills and career skills to help them get there. So I'm really passionate about making sure young people are included in the decisions that council arrives at, and they can contribute to the decisions that affect their lives too. I'm very proud to be supporting Sallianne and Martin and keen to hear from everyone tonight. Thank you.
Sallianne, do you want to wrap it up? You've got another little bit of time.
Look, we're just really excited to be representing Ward B. We are three very passionate people that live, work, play in the Shire. I personally was raised on the beliefs of basic freedoms and equality for all, the importance of family and giving back to the community. And all three of us are ready to act and listen, and that's Martin's chime up. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So next up, we are going to take some questions. I'll go straight to one question, and then after that we'll probably have a 30-second break just in case people want to get a glass of water or a toilet stop or whatever. I'd like to acknowledge that Paul Sauter from the Westleigh Progress Association has put a fair bit of effort into organising tonight and contacting the candidates and pulling things together. So as a result of that, he gets the first question. And Paul's question is, how can Hornsby Council prepare for the consequences of climate change in the area? And doing this in a slightly different order, but just rolling through. So Janelle McIntosh, then Monica Ball, then Sallianne McClelland, then Emme Heyde, then Philip Ruddock.
And 2 minutes speaking time.
Yeah.
So again, we'll give
We'll
you a
give you
bell
30
at
second.
1:30.
Yeah. And you don't have to go the full 2 minutes, but we'll gong you out after 2. So starting with, starting with, who do I just start with? Janelle.
Thank you. And thank you, Paul, for the question. I think it's probably the question that council needs to deal with. And I think it's something that needs to permeate every decision that we make. My feeling is that the effects of climate change have to be addressed in 2 ways. One, by council as a corporation. So that has to affect every decision that we make. And in fact, it does. Some of the decisions you will have seen us make over this term are about renewable energy. It's about street lighting and saving emissions through much more effective LED street lighting, saving money in the process, which is fantastic, and a range of other things across all of our community facilities and services. I would like to see council's fleet converted to an electric fleet, for instance. I would like to see us make sure that all of the council buildings and facilities are solar powered, that have appropriate water tanks and other devices across all of the buildings. That mean we reduce the use of air conditioning, for instance, and have good flow through ventilation. That we use a number of renewable or recycled products in all of the work we do, such as the glass that's being used in the paving for some of our areas, and also in reusing plastics in street furniture and other items that we use in our town centres and public domain. So there are a range of things that council can do to, address the issues of sustainability and climate change in our own corporate response. But the other part of the equation, of course, is the community, and that's about encouraging everybody to consider what they do in their daily lives to address climate change. Now, this is about, in my view, incentives, education, and availability of information, and we have to provide people with opportunities to participate in education about climate change, about what it means and what individuals can do to address it. I think the effects of the pandemic, of people working from home and contemplating commuting less and operating more in a smaller environment, reducing their carbon footprint, is a great way to address climate change moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Okay, Monica, you're up next. And after Monica is Sallianne.
Thank you. In addition to everything Janelle said, I definitely think that we need an updated fire plan. Our fire plan is out of date, so that's a priority. Preparedness, we need a community that's prepared. I know that when we had power outages a couple of years ago, there were comments on Facebook by mothers who couldn't afford to feed their family on takeaway. So if we had a plan and a preparation for where the showers are, where the home cooked meals, who could coordinate home cooked meals, where there could be emergency shelter. So definitely we need a plan and a prepared plan so the community is resilient. Definitely, obviously everything like Janelle said as well, we have to reduce our consumption. So I definitely think working ways of getting community solar, access to community solar, so people can reduce their use of fossil powered fuels. Thank you.
Okay, Sallianne.
Sallianne, we can't hear you.
Can you hear us okay?
Sallianne and Daniel, I can see you, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Hello.
Yep, that's better.
All right, I'll go this way. All right, I'm just going to mention a few points, given this is an area of passion for all 3 of us. Climate change is an absolutely critical issue for Hornsby. We're already seeing the risks that are coming from drier winters and hotter summers, greater bushfire risk, and flood risk and damage from storms, as we've seen in recent years as well. So the actions that council can take here are often divided into your mitigation, so mitigating the effect of climate change, and your adaptation. So in terms of your And this question is really about your how you adapt, because it was about dealing with the consequences of climate change. There are a number of things that we all support that are listed in the climate-wise Hornsby plan, which is provided by this term of council and is on the website. We've definitely enjoyed poring over that in our time. And the things that fall specifically in this category, to answer the question directly, are disaster management and business continuity, flood protection, and infrastructure upgrades. Those are the three broad things that council can make a priority. So we support, for example, some of the initiatives that Janelle mentioned before, which have occurred this term because they've contributed towards those goals. There'll be more to do. I understand council's done great things with, for example, the LED streetlights, but the streetlights and other electricity continue to be a large share of council's emissions profile. So the ideas of solar and things like that to try and either create renewable sources for that fuel or to find alternative ways to achieve the same outcome are going to be really key to council in making improvements on that space. There's also other areas I'll flag, but I can't describe in this time, that apply to both mitigation and the adaptation side, things like water conservation, water sensitive urban design, continuing to build the urban forest that Mayor Ruddock's played a big role in advancing to this stage with the urban canopy, education, local food and energy systems. Those are all areas that are going to be a big priority for the next term, and we'd be really excited to play a role in how they're shaped. To
getting everyone better. Internet isn't working. Is everyone else having trouble hearing Daniel? It might be us. It might be us. Okay.
Daniel, did you want to add anything?
All good.
Okay, we might be the ones having difficulty with the internet. Let me cross then to Emme Heyde. This has got to be your strong suit. Please give us 2 minutes on climate change in Hornsby.
Yeah, thanks. It is my strong suit, and I'm incredibly excited to hear all the candidates last night and again tonight promising to be as green as I am, because it's, you know, we are in an emergency. And even though my motion, when I put it up to council, was gutted by the Liberals and one of the Labor councillors who decided we didn't need to declare a climate emergency in Hornsby, it's really exciting hearing every single candidate speak in passionate support of more action on climate. Hornsby really has gone from zero to hero in this regard. When I joined in 2017, climate was a dirty word. And now, as you hear, we've got universal support for fantastic programs, and not just plans in the back of a filing cabinet. We're actually doing stuff, a lot of which Janelle outlined. So basically, you need to make sure that climate's factored into every single decision you make. That's what the response is, and that's the only adequate response when basically the world is facing a decline which we wouldn't wish for our children or our grandchildren. So it's a bit like accessibility, a bit like when you build in an awareness of disability and accessibility into every decision, the outcomes are just better for everybody. And that's exactly the same as climate. When we build it into every decision, the outcomes are better financially, socially, and in every other way. So at the moment, sometimes I'm the only councillor still raising it, but if this lot are elected, it sounds like I won't be alone anymore, and we'll have a proper appreciation of our climate vulnerability and how we're going to protect residents, because that's what governments are here to do. They're here to protect residents, to keep people safe. And in that regard, I also remind everyone that 50% of Hornsby homes are on bushfire prone land. And I think we're going to have a very significant number of people struggling to be able to access insurance for their properties in the future. And that may well fall back onto council to advocate to other levels of government for assistance with that. So yeah, big topic. Thanks for the question, Paul. And yeah, I'm grateful to be able to share my thoughts on that one with you all.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Apologies to everyone that we seem to have lost a bit of internet connection here at the end of Daniel's discussion, but I hope everyone else heard it well. So just finalising this question, what can Hornsby Council do to prepare for the consequences of climate change in the area? And the last respondent is Philip Ruddock.
Well, thank you very much. Can I just say I have taken a view that council should be collegiate and work together. And it always disappoints me when some council colleagues see fit to argue that they're the only ones who are putting a particular view when council has resolved to put a view representing the people of this area. We weren't wanting to make a statement about climate change without making a very clear statement about what council could in fact do itself. And council's view was in September 2019 that it would adopt a target of net zero emissions by 2050, a unanimous view. In March 2021, we adopted the Sustainable Hornsby 2040 strategy, the Climate-Wise Hornsby Plan, which included an interim target of 32% reductions in emissions from 2018 levels by 2025, and a 53% reduction from 2018 levels by 2030, and carbon neutral by 2041 and zero emissions by 2050. We developed a long-term financial plan so that our investments would be in investments that were not using emissions or producing emissions. Council resolved that the General Manager should produce 100% renewable energy in accordance with its principles of financial sustainability. The Council resolved to participate in Lighting the Way program with Ausgrid, where we put in 4,000 LED lights. Council adopted the ESROC Paving the Way program, where we used products that were of crushed glass in substitute for natural sand in roads and footpaths. We had our Greening Hornsby program, 30,000 trees planted, and it's been extraordinarily successful. We've had the commencement of the Hornsby Town Centre carbon neutral precinct plan. We've commenced public domain works which address urban heat, including the planting of advanced trees, landscaping gardens, footpaths, shared paths and the like. I could go on because if you look at what we've been doing in the waste area, if you look at what we've been doing in reviewing and updating our bushfire-prone land mapping, we wanted to ensure that we kept our tree canopy, but planned for bushfires in a way that mitigated risk and ensured that people's properties were more effectively protected. 6 councils along the Hawkesbury Nepean River are working together to develop a coastal management strategy to coordinate the Hawkesbury River and its tributaries. And the first stage of this has consumed something of the order of consultation with 20 New South Wales government departments to develop the strategy. So
I'm going to cut you off, but we are about to have a question on trees and canopy, which is something you just mentioned there anyway, so you can probably come back in on that one. This is a question from Roy Sotzi, if I pronounce that right, from Thornleigh. As I mentioned earlier, it's a combined effort of Westleigh Progress Association and Thornleigh Residents and Pennant Hills District Civic Trust. And so glad to get some questions in from Thornleigh. It's best if you can put your questions through to us on the chat. If you're looking at the same sort of Zoom screen that I have a series of things along the bottom, and one of those says chat. You click on that and then you can type your questions in and we'll read them. We may be able to have actual questions with your voice as well, but at this stage, let's see if we can start with questions on the chat. That way we can corral similar questions together. So the first person to answer this one is going to be Monica Ball, and then Sallianne McClelland, just so we're rolling through that list. The question is, the new SEPP, State Environmental Planning Policy, is about to come out fairly soon after the election on the 4th of December. Roy says this will be a one-size-fits-all set of development controls for all of Sydney, giving no exceptions or differences for the Bushland Shire and Hornsby. By council's own figures, the tree canopy on private land is constantly reducing. How will each candidate address this after the new SEPP, which will probably make clearing of trees by developers even easier compared to what we have today? Yeah, so starting with what did I say? Monica.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks for the question. I don't think we can have a one-size-fits-all solution to every piece of land. So obviously I'm not in council yet to know what can be done or how it can be done, but I'd assume that we'd have to do some strong campaigning against the state government to make sure that we can keep decisions at the council level. I think that's about as much as I can answer in that regard, but I definitely would be opposed to more tree clearing. It's not the solution. We need to be saving trees, and I know that we're doing good things here by planting trees, but we still lose 15,000 trees a year. I'm against more land clearing, full stop. Thank you.
So next up is Sallianne, followed by Emma.
Oh, sorry.
So next up is Sallianne, followed by Emma. So Sallianne on the new SEPP and Tree Canopy.
Look, you know, as Monica pointed out, this is a state decision, and not being a councillor and not being across the strategies that have already been discussed and are sitting on the planning table, I really am not in a position to make full statements, but I believe strongly that we need to protect our heritage, protect our bushland shire, and develop appropriately. So again, development, if it can come back in some way into the hands of council and into the hands of community, then of course we're going to have a stronger community and infrastructure that reflects what we know and love about this bushland shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Sallianne. Okay, next up is Emma.
Thanks for the question, Roy. It's a really, really good one. The solution to pushing back on any of the SEPPs, and it's not just this one that's a problem, many of them are, is electing people who are not of the same political party as our state and our federal leaders. It does us no favours in Hornsby Shire to have Liberals in control of the council and in state government and in federal government. What you do need is councillors and a new mayor that are experienced in pushing back against the state government. And I've done it in 3 notable ways, and I'll give you those examples. I've been successful in each. I worked with the community in Cherrybrook to get their buses back when the state government cancelled them once they opened the metro. The residents collected 10,000 signatures. I helped them take it to the media and to the New South Wales Parliament, and the state government did a backflip and returned the buses. Second of all, I got my council colleagues to agree to lobby the federal government to take much more ambitious climate targets to Glasgow. We, as a council, wrote to Angus Taylor, the Energy Minister, the Prime Minister, and to our local federal MPs, imploring them to listen to the science and take some decent and respectable targets to Glasgow. Obviously, we weren't successful, but we raised our voices, and I'm very proud of that lobbying effort by Hornsby Council. And third time, I managed to initiate the process where the rural boundary clearing code, which was going to allow rural landholders to clear 10 metres from their boundaries across Hornsby Shire. I got that process started, and council eventually got an exemption. In fact, we got an exemption for the whole of Sydney as a result of that. So you need people to push back in a really effective and successful way against the state government as they impose these ridiculous SEPPs across all of Sydney, and in particular on Hornsby Shire.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Emma. It's with some trepidation I invite Philip Ruddock to talk about SEPPs, because I heard him talk about them before. Philip, your turn, please.
Can I say I very much regret the politicisation of this program. And if I can say to Emma, if she thinks she is responsible for every decision that's been taken by council, she is having herself on. But what I do know is that council was very significantly disadvantaged as a result of the effort of the Greens to oppose adequate compensation for Hornsby as a result of the failed council amalgamations. And let me say, I think she and her colleague, Shoebridge, have done us a grave disservice, because the prospect that we may be further accommodated for the damage we suffered has been, I think, lost because of their opposition to those measures that the state government put to ensure that we were not worse off. Can I just say, in my view, you need to be able to talk with government. The idea that you get what you want by opposing them is, I think, seriously flawed. If you're looking at SEPPs, one of the things that we were able to do in the rural land areas was to ensure that the SEPP dealing with aged persons accommodation was taken away. I think we ought to be able to deal with these issues, and I don't know the detail of the SEPP that's being talked about. I suspect it's more in somebody's mind than in reality, but I tell you, if there are SEPPs that are likely to further disadvantage the Shire and its bushland character, I will be talking to the government on behalf of Hornsby vigorously to get the appropriate outcome. And in my view, you'll get far better results by working with them than simply saying, put me in and I'll take them on.
Very much, Philip. I think, Janelle, you haven't had a turn on this one yet?
I haven't, thank you. I will leave the politics to the mayoral candidates to debate. I think the question here is about state environmental planning policies and what councils can do jointly to respond to them. It isn't the voice of one person. There's 10 of us who are elected, not 1, 10. And we need to take forward a joint view on these state environmental planning policies and campaign to the state government about the issues that face Hornsby and will disadvantage Hornsby. And as the Mayor has just described, we have had some success when we have come together and lobbied against some of these things. One of them, seniors living and getting them out of the rural areas. We campaigned together and we had some success. The other one, medium density housing. We had an opportunity here to make sure that medium density housing wasn't just put on the agenda across our entire Shire, and we got a moratorium on that. And we're still working in terms of a strategic response to that. So it is incredibly important that we have diverse voices on council, but it is equally important that we come together when the state government imposes some of these unrealistic and detrimental policies that will affect Hornsby. We come together and fiercely protect our Shire, regardless of what political party or independent thought we bring to the table. It's about defending Hornsby. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm pleased that the debate is warming up a little bit, reminding everyone to remain polite and preferably within the time limit. I'm about to throw a hand grenade into the discussion, and this will be a fun one. And once again, to people that are wanting to pose questions, best to post them on the chat. There's 3 questions posted on the chat about mountain biking, and I'm going to try and merge them all together. Apologies to the 3 people who posted them if I don't completely express your view, because I'm trying to capture the whole of this debate. Now I'm going to start with Sallianne McClelland, or it might actually be Martin who speaks on her behalf, and then Emma, and then Philip, and then Janelle, and then Monica. Very interesting, given that this event is, as I said, all of the heavy lifting was done by the Westleigh Progress Association. It seems that people in Westleigh, but also in Thornleigh and Pennant Hills, are somewhat divided on the issue of mountain bikes. I've seen comments in the chat that range from why would we allow anyone to use this part of what is known as the HTO space, because it will endanger the turpentine forest and the animals there, right down to the other end of the spectrum of this is a fantastic community facility that we should be promoting and will increase tourism and amenity of the area. So I'm not going to flavour the debate on mountain biking in particular, not necessarily talk about Westleigh only, though that's obviously very relevant to lots of people on this call. There's also the mountain bike facility at the quarry in Hornsby, and there's certainly mountain bikes that run through the National Park near my place at Pennant Hills, from the archery centre all the way through to Macquarie University. So on mountain bikes, Sallianne McClelland or possibly Martin? 2 minutes.
Actually,
Where do you stand?
I'm going to take a moment to just share that I've been volunteering down in Southeast Coast in Mogo for the last pretty much 2 years. And back in June, I was tapped on the shoulder by Gladys Berejiklian and Andrew Constance to come down to Mogo and work closely with the businesses for fire recovery. The reason I share that with you is because I have watched the most magnificent planning, management, strategy put in place for the Mogo mountain bike adventure trails that they are putting into Mogo. They're putting them into Narooma and Ulladulla. And there's been a huge amount of work involved, a huge amount of consultation between all parties so that the areas that should be protected are protected and the trails are developed with, in keeping with the bushland area that's there. So I am certainly in favour of working collaboratively with the mountain bike groups and also those who are concerned about preserving the bush and making sure that if and when we go down this path that we do it with respect to the land that we sit on.
Martin, for some reason, we're not picking you up very well. Can you get a bit closer to the mic? Yeah, no one can hear you, mate. Just get a lot closer and speak very loudly.
Well, can you hear me now?
Yes.
The mountain bike community and the council have been working extremely closely together to ensure that the tracks can happen within this endangered species. There are examples of this all over Australia, in Tasmania, in Thredbo, in other national parks where this can happen. They can coexist. Yes, there are some areas in Westleigh Park that need to be avoided, and the council and the mountain bikers are working together to make this happen.
A little bit more time because of the difficulty hearing you. Any more from either of you two?
Also, I think the council have done some great work in the links between linking Old Man Valley and the mountain bike tracks up. The amount of money that this can bring in tourism. There was a question in regards to how do mountain bikers bring in tourism. There's $630 million directly related to rider spend when they move around and go to different communities. So there's a huge amount of money that's potentially available, and Hornsby should be getting a share of that.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for the techno glitch. Okay, next is Emma and then Philip Ruddock. On mountain bikes, Westleigh, Pennant Hills and Hornsby.
Yeah, look, I think mountain biking is a fantastic sport. Who wouldn't love it? It gets you out in the bush. It gets families going together. It's not polluting. It doesn't use fossil fuels. It's not noisy. When I walk, and I do most days, from my place in Cheltenham up to Pennant Hills and do a big loop back, I used to see, 3 or 4 people on bikes. Now I see, on the weekends, I'd see 50. It's just exploded during COVID. And I think a lot of people are finding, that fresh air and that freedom just a wonderful thing for them and their families. And I hope it continues after we all, get back to normal life. What I would caution is that I've also seen tremendous damage ever since I moved here in 1998 from people forcing their way through the bush with their mountain bikes. I've seen national parks really struggle to contain that damage and to keep people on the sanctioned fire trails. So that was one point I wanted to make, and obviously everyone who's seen the damage at Ahimsa feels extraordinarily sad when people don't stick to the tracks and they do go after pristine, beautiful bushland, and particularly endangered bushland, and particularly bushland where bush care volunteers work so hard. I had bush care volunteers in tears actually at Chilworth Reserve in Beecroft when mountain bikers got in there with shovels and hatchets and yeah, made a mess of it. It was very, very upsetting. But actually, I think the discussion is about allocation of resources at Westleigh. Every sport is important. Everyone has a right to enjoy their sport. And I think the carve up of the pie needs to include mountain bikers as well as organised sports like soccer and AFL and all the rest. So it's a really important discussion that is an ongoing one, and I hope to be able to be a constructive part of that.
Okay, thank you very much, Emma. Philip Ruddock?
Did you see me on the bike?
I haven't seen you on the bike recently. I've seen you do lots of walking.
Well, you better go on the council website and find the video of me on the bike going down to the Hornsby Quarry mountain bike track. I do have a bike at home. It's a fold-up Peugeot. It's of a very different design. And I have a son-in-law who rides great lengths every weekend, often from Randwick, where he is living, down to Wollongong. And if he's not going in that direction, he's coming up through Hornsby Shire up to Newcastle on other days. But look, the importance is to understand that cycling is a very important sport. It's a very important means of communication, and we need to ensure that the paths that we've got are effectively linked. In many cases they're not. Where people can use cycles, it's extraordinarily difficult for them to be able to do so. And council has been endeavouring, as you would know very well, to plan these sorts of tracks for the use of people of the Shire. I understand that at times there are sensitive areas where you might not want mountain biking. I said to those who were wanting to advance the development of further tracks that we need to sit down and work together. My view is that we need, as we have endeavoured to do so in council, is to take a collegiate approach where you bring people together, you talk through what the possible difficulties are, and you come up with a solution that is acceptable. And I think we will be able to continue to do that constructively in relation to Westleigh, in relation to the development of a route to the Hornsby Quarry. I have no doubt that we'll be able to identify other sites from time to time. And I think working collegiately together, constructively, can get the very best outcome and satisfy all our residents.
Okay, thank you very much. Janelle.
Thank you. This is a complex issue, and we've had lots of discussion about this recently, but we've obviously absolutely got to deliver a strategy about cycling and mountain biking that is a sustainable way forward and that addresses the critically endangered ecological communities within Westleigh and other areas, but also acknowledging that at this point in time, mountain biking, we do not have a strategy for it. We do not have an adopted position. And I think councils fail spectacularly when they don't take the opportunity to pause and have discussions with all of the key players in these absolutely critical issues. Now, I'm really pleased that we have agreed at council with a notice of motion I put forward that we develop a response to the cycling economy, not just mountain biking, but road cycling and learn to cycle and all the other aspects of recreational cycling. We moved just recently to an active transport study. Next year, we're going to look at a recreation in natural areas strategy, and we're going to have some opportunities for everyone to come together and come up with an agreed position about mountain biking. Just in terms of Westleigh, I'd really like to make sure as well that the needs of the residents are considered there, because I know that there are people who are determined to see the sporting fields developed there and the mountain biking trails, there are equally residents in Westleigh who are greatly concerned about the traffic, the parking and the access that will be generated by development on that site. So I really want to see a great consultation process take place that makes sure everyone's voices get heard when we come up with some solutions to this moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Janelle. So now last on mountain biking in Westleigh, Pennant Hills and Hornsby, Monica Ball.
Thank you, Andrew. It seems like everybody's on the same page here, that it all needs to be done coherently in consultation with all the stakeholders, and also with in mind of the critically endangered forest. So it should not be done illegally and haphazardly. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thanks. It's obviously easy if you're the last person commenting to have a shorter one, and that seems to be fairly common. So thank you for that, Monica. If you had a spare 2.5 hours, we could continue talking about mountain biking, and we don't, so I'm going to cut it off there. But if you are able to access the chat, you might want to read the other 20 posts that have been posted while you've all been speaking, because they are quite interesting, and it really does expose the keenness with which people feel about this particular issue, and I don't think we're going to resolve it tonight, but that was a very, very helpful discussion. It's the perfect springboard for my favourite topic, which is the cycle path and multi-user path between Pennant Hills to Beecroft, down the railway access corridor to Beecroft, then to Cheltenham, and across the M2 to Epping. For people who don't know, we've already received $5 million from the state government, and work is already underway for the stretch between Beecroft and Cheltenham. And my question to all of the councillors, you're only going to have 1 minute for this one, because it should be fairly easy given the discussion we've just had about cycling, is if you are elected as a councillor or a mayor, will you support a request to the state government to fund the rest of that? So we've basically got Beecroft to Cheltenham. Will you fund Cheltenham to Epping and Beecroft to Pennant Hills? Starting that will be, so I've got to get the order right here. So it would be Emma.
A quick response to that one. Absolutely. As you know, Andrew, I'm excited about it. I can't wait till we see the whole thing built, though, because we're just doing the easy bit in the middle at the moment. What will make this a really worthwhile project is if we get the other two ends built, the bit from Pennant Hills to Beecroft and the bit from Cheltenham to Epping, and then we'll have something to really be proud of, and to get cars off the road and to get people exercising and to keep kids safer. So, yeah, can't wait. And, yep, I'll use my effective lobbying skills and my ability to work with the community to get those results.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is Philip Ruddock.
Excuse my mirth. Emma, we can work together positively with the government to get an outcome, which we both want. We are committed. Council resolved that we would support this program all the way through. All we need is the bucket of money to pay for the parts that we can't afford from our own resources at this time. We may have to find some additional monies of our own over time, but if we can get a bucket of money from the state government by working positively with them with a positive message about the importance, it'd be a great outcome.
Thank you very much, Philip. Okay, Janelle.
Short answer, yes, absolutely. And we've got to make sure, though, that we're not just building small chunks that are just one section. We've got to make sure that we complete things and connect it so that our whole shire is possible to be traversed safely and easily for cyclists and walkers. And we don't have that. So we've got a lot of work to do.
Yes, and to extend that, it's cyclists, walkers, mums with prams, elderly people in mobility scooters, little kids learning how to ride a bike or a scooter or a tricycle, etc., etc. Okay, next after Janelle is Monica.
Yes, absolutely. I love my e-bike. I ride it as much as possible. I walked the path to Beecroft the other day, and you could see there's plenty of potential there. And yeah, I'm all for it in every way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sallianne and your team.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
As a road cyclist, I couldn't think of anything more important than a safe route between connecting communities. I used to ride every day from Westleigh to Macquarie Park, down Pennant Hills Road, Beecroft Road, in fear of my life, So having paths that connect our communities would be absolutely phenomenal.
You're a
We're all
greater
on the
man than
same
me.
page.
Okay, thank you very much. That's our list. I need to find a new question. Everyone just take a 30-second break, stretch your legs, have a drink of water, go to the toilet, and okay, yeah. Okay, this is a question from a Pennant Hills resident. I'm guessing it might be Paul. And in the past 12 months prior to COVID, so in the 12 months prior to COVID, we saw approximately 20 businesses close in Pennant Hills. This was due to a number of factors, including the traffic down the railway line decreasing because of the metro going from Macquarie, Epping to Rouse Hill, etc. This was partly due to the NBN. This was partly due to the large office of Masters Woolworths closing in Pennant Hills. And since then, we've also had the double whammy of COVID and businesses being forced to close and now trying to reopen. So that's all background. The focused question is, what have you done as a councillor, or what do you plan to do to encourage business growth in Pennant Hills? And to be fair, you should probably extend that to Thornleigh and Westleigh. So this time starting with Philip Ruddock.
Well, council has been very focused on Pennant Hills because of the issues that you've correctly identified. Living as I do and shopping almost every day in Pennant Hills, I know much of what has happened over a period of time. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that the railway usage changed when people went to Cherrybrook. And obviously a number of ventures that weren't supported in the same way failed. I really much regretted that. Council can't do anything other than better plan and try and provide greater amenity that will attract people to the business centre. And we do see Pennant Hills in need of a master plan, and council has been readying itself for that after it completes its work in relation to the Hornsby Town Centre.
Thank you very much, Philip. Next up we have Janelle, followed by Monica, followed by Sallianne. So Janelle.
Thank you. Look, I agree. The issue, of course, is that the double whammy that has hit Pennant Hills. The issues surrounding the construction there that have impacted on the businesses, and the Cherrybrook rail corridor, which has impacted particularly those rail corridor businesses, and then the impact of COVID and the pandemic and the closures there has just been a double whammy for Pennant Hills. I know we've spoken previously about the master plan. I've certainly spent time down in Pennant Hills talking to the shop owners about the effects there. And I really feel that we've got to reconsider the timing of the Pennant Hills master plan. I know that we had spoken previously within council, and it's council's adopted position that we will get to Pennant Hills after we complete the Hornsby Town Centre master plan. But I wonder whether there's not an opportunity to have a discussion about a really locally led COVID recovery with a business program to support and encourage and really scaffold the businesses there to try and help find a way through this particular environment. I'm seeing some really good things happening in other areas in terms of business support and economic development to support local businesses as they try and emerge out of this environment. And I think to pin all the hopes on a master plan is possibly a mistake. So I think we've probably got to look at a balance between those two things. And I would really encourage a discussion when the new council is endorsed to have a consideration of the timing of that master plan so that it really is a balance of both. But I really do think we've got to look at some economic development and business support approaches there rather than just planning. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Janelle. If you've got your bingo cards out for the buzzword bingo, one of the obvious ones would be the Pennant Hills master plan. And thank you, Janelle, for raising that. So I'd encourage the other candidates following on this discussion, if you want to do what Janelle did and incorporate the discussion not just on an economic recovery for Pennant Hills, but the Pennant Hills Master Plan, please feel free to add that. And sorry, Philip, that you didn't get that opportunity, but I'm sure we'll get through. Okay, so next up is Monica, who's a Pennant Hills resident.
Yes, I am, and I also have a landscape design and have an interest in urban design, all for creating open green public spaces. I thoroughly enjoy going to Lane Cove. They've redeveloped their outdoor space, and it has a playground, amphitheatre, open grassed area, and lots of outdoor dining. So our area could be activated and could be really, really awesome, and also while keeping the village feel. So I think we just need vision, and I'm happy to work with our community to create that vision and do some sort of concepting of what we want. I think that's what's going to be needed, not waiting for council to act and to do a plan. I think we need to have the community all coordinated and together, and having things in mind that we actually want to see in that space. So I'm all for that. As for the immediate fixes, pop-up shops seem to work a lot around Newcastle. I don't know how that actually works, but that would be a way to activate the spaces that are currently unused and create more traffic to go into these places that aren't being visited. The other thing is that, you know, outdoor dining is now a real big thing. You go to the cities and you go to the laneways. You know, we have some laneways in Pennant Hills. They could be snazzied up. We've got some beautiful little spaces that we could, you know, enhance and create some different vibe to. And I think I've also noticed that some of the local businesses are already doing that. They're, you know, once nightfall comes, they're activating the empty car parks, and bringing in food trucks and the like to expand the business to their cafes, like Ambies is doing so. So there's plenty of ways. We just need, you know, some new thinking, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Sallianne and your team.
Look, I think everyone is in agreement that the town planning is a priority for all the major town centres, including obviously Hornsby. We've spent a bit of time in Pennant Hills, and we agree that some work needs to be done to revitalise each of the town centres, but in particular Pennant Hills. And I do like the thought that Janelle put forward, that maybe we can sort of relook at the order in which we do things. And vision is important. And as a strategic event creator for the last 30 years, I have created opportunities where people have thought that there have been none. And so in the meantime, we will get creative, and we will get thoughtful, and we will get mindful, and we will talk to business owners and community and find out just exactly what they're looking for in their community and deliver on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sallianne. Now flicking over to Emma on the subject of reviving, boosting, recovering Pennant Hills businesses. Maybe a comment on the Pennant Hills Master Plan, and very happy for you to extend that to Beecroft, Thornleigh, Westleigh as well. Emma.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. It's a really, really good question, Paul. I've spent a lot of time shopping in Pennant Hills, and using the many services there for various years, for various reasons, for many, many years. I know and love it. And it's got a lot of character, but it's problematic as well. Obviously, the parking is difficult. Local businesses are struggling. Accessibility isn't wonderful. There's a lot that needs improvement, and it's got huge potential. But what I'd hate to see is the developers coming in first and nabbing the blocks and putting their vision to council before the elected councillors and the community have a say in what gets built and where and who buy. So yeah, I've been talking to particularly the Pennant Hills District Civic Trust about this for a long, long time. Noel and I have had many a chat about the master plan, and it was something I was keen to see this term of council do, but obviously it decided to prioritise Hornsby. So the second comment I'd make is that I think master plans are all very well, but many that I've seen talk about how hard the hours are going to be. That's not a particular help to local business. And in Beecroft, when the 5-storey development went up, local businesses were hung out to dry. They had no one to turn to. They were left, you know, without anybody to no one had their backs. It was a disaster. And those local businesses are the heart and soul of those independent proprietors, those locally living business owners. They give character to our suburbs, and Pennant Hills is a really good example of that. So I think we desperately need an economic development officer at Hornsby Council, so that if and when development comes, somebody's got the back of small business in Pennant Hills, because I've seen it in Beecroft when there was nobody, and it was not a pretty sight.
Thank you very much.
Would you mind if I add, is Leon left to talk, or do you mind if I add a quick comment? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure, Paul.
I've seen the what I call the slummification of Pennant Hills over the last number of years, where business owners are under full awareness that when redevelopment of Pennant Hills occurs, they will see a similar thing occur as what happened in Beecroft, where they will more than likely be displaced during the redevelopment of Pennant Hill. As a result, no business owner is going to invest in the beautification of their business to a large extent. They will do tinkering stuff, but no business is going to invest $1 million in redeveloping a beautiful facade to their business if they are under the understanding that there could be a redevelopment in a year or two, and they will not see or realise that investment. I think business in Pennant Hills needs a clear direction of a timeline, so either they can invest in the beautification of their businesses and improve the appearance of Pennant Hills, knowing that they'll get a return on their investment, or have some sort of or just know that they can just withdraw the money from their business and not invest in it, knowing that it's going to happen in a year or two's time. The mixed message that we received in that point, where it could happen next year or could happen next term, is of no benefit to Pennant Hills. There's no use in that. If you're going to bring it forward, and that makes it harder for businesses to invest in. It's going to be another 10 years, and it's going to be more easy for business to invest that money. So you have to be definite in which way you're going to go with this. Please don't muck us around anymore.
Okay, Paul, I'm going to cut you off just because we're trying to talk to the candidates. I'll just remove your soapbox, but thank you very much for asking the question and giving that comment. I won't let the candidates respond again, because I think we know we did get a very interesting comment on the chat during that discussion that Heather from West Pennant Hills said that West Pennant Hills is not too flash either. That I think this is an issue that we could spread across the various shopping precincts in our little postcode zone. Bill Aitken, can you unmute? Because I'm going to have a bash at asking your question. If you would like to help me, please do. Bill has been the founding editor of a local rag, The Chronicle, for many, many years before selling it just 4 or 5 years ago. And I can trust Bill to always be a very polite question asker. Given the reference to playgrounds and the use of some private companies using them for things like fitness classes, an example being Normanhurst Park, how do the councillors and would-be councillors feel about commercial ventures like that using our local parks? Bill, do you want to?
Can I just, for those of you who may not have been aware of the coverage given to this on 2BL this morning, many councils during COVID have encountered a problem. And the problem is that the local community can't use parks because all the tables have been booked out by 7 o'clock in the morning. And the reason for my question is that 2 years ago, I complained bitterly to council after one of my little grandchildren fell over a dumbbell in the middle of the playground here in Normanhurst. It was placed there by a group that are using the public facility for their own little business, which is great. I'm not against pop-ups, but I'm wondering what insurance coverage they had. I was wondering also whether the councillors and the council were aware of these usages? Are they paying any rent? And who's cleaning up after them?
Okay,
Now,
thanks, Bill. Bill, I'll cut you off so we can get to the councillors. Yep.
Sorry, Andrew. After my complaint, they did remove themselves, but in the last month, they're back again. So just some clarification on how you feel about our public facilities being used for private ventures.
Okay, Janelle, I think you're next up on my rolling list. So Janelle, Monica, Sallianne.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks, Bill. I'm unaware of that specific use, but my personal feeling is that commercial uses have their place, provided that there are appropriate insurances, safety agreements and cleansing agreements in place, and that it doesn't impact, as you have discovered with your granddaughter, on the use and access by members of the general public. Now, in a park adjacent to me, I'm aware that there is a regular fitness group that operate there, and there are regular not-for-profit Tai Chi groups that operate, etc., etc. But the sort of packs that operate, the training and fitness packs, I believe they should be paying their way. And what I would like to see is that we direct any income that we make from any of these groups back into the maintenance of these parks. So it doesn't just go into general revenue, but it should actually go back in. So there's a direct and material benefit. But I would really stress that I would like to see that all of those issues about insurance, hazards, public safety, cleansing, and any repatriation of anything that gets damaged as a result of their use is all built into any agreement.
Yep.
Thanks.
Sorry. Yeah, after Janelle is Monica.
Okay, so this is new to me as well, Bill, and I guess I agree with the fact that insurances would be required, and if they're leaving a mess, they need to be cleaning up after themselves. I guess I don't understand, are they big corporations we're talking about, or are we talking about just small little, people doing their one-on-one or, small group personal fitness regimes? I'd consider yoga or meditation in the park to be very different to other activities. So I'm not really sure of what to say, really. So I think I'll never go to the next person. Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. Always appreciate someone who can be a bit quicker. So Sallianne, comments on use of public facilities?
Yeah, Martin taking this one. Absolutely, parks, if they're a group using the park, insurances, etc., as everyone else has said, needs to happen. What we've got to remember is a lot of the people that are actually going to these facilities are local community people, are individuals who live in the community and who are doing the fitness training because it's their local park. There may be someone who's an instructor who is instructing them on correct fitness, and yes, they definitely need to either book or pay the insurance. It's a given. They need to clean up and look after the facilities. But a lot of the people that are using it aren't coming in from other suburbs. They will be local residents who are doing the fitness in the park.
Okay, thanks, Martin. Emma?
Yeah, thanks. It's a really good question, Bill. As someone who does a lot of exercise outside, I love the idea of people being able to exercise outside, and I think that's kind of the claustrophobia of lockdown reinforced for everybody how incredibly important our green spaces are. Like I said, I used to see 4 people on a bike, maybe 1 or 2 other walkers. Yeah, the place was transformed over the last year or so as we all tried desperately to get outside and get some fresh air. I do worry about commercial creep. I think that is a very significant issue, and if it was crowding out other users of the park, that would be problematic for me. Just like, for example, if somebody set up a little business in our libraries, and I know sometimes informal, tutoring goes on, for example, in our libraries. So it is a grey area, people sort of using the public facilities for to make a bit of money or set up a little business. But yeah, I think some tolerance for very small scale is absolutely fine, but I'd agree with other people who've raised the issue of appropriate insurance and care for other users. and some remuneration for the fact that it is a public facility being used for private gain is appropriate. And if it started impacting on everybody else's enjoyment of the place, well, it would have to end, because they are public facilities for the public to enjoy.
I think too, Emma, we must be mindful that we have a number of local businesses vis-a-vis Pennant Hills, gyms, that are relying on these people to go there, and they're paying big dollars to landlords.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Emma. Philip, anything to add? Given that you're
Yeah.
the last one on this one.
I think Bill has correctly identified what has been happening, and his latter comment is really the crux of it. There are two big gyms in Pennant Hills. One of them doesn't have, one of them is next door to you, and I don't think they have the same trainers as they have around the corner. But I know when the gyms were closed, the people who were instructors needed to be able to take their clients somewhere. And they took them down to Pennant Hills Park. The use that was being made has come off a bit, but there are still some people there each morning. I was surprised Emma didn't allude to it, because she goes past it as I do. They bring out their equipment and the like. And it seems to me that it was understandable in the COVID situation when the gyms were closed that it was appropriate that people needed to be able to go somewhere and to conduct their business operations. I think now that that is passed, we need to look at what is in fact happening, and if it's been a transfer of a business operation permanently, then the arrangements need to be properly supervised, particularly in relation to supervision and ensuring a public benefit that may be derived privately is brought back to council.
Thank you, Philip, and yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bill, especially to that question. We've got some nice unity in that response. I think, so I'll point out it's now about 9:05. We'll wrap up somewhere between 9:15 and 9:30. Many of the questions are now overlapping with previous ones, so I'm trying not to go back to old ground. But from that question from Bill on use of public space for exercise and fitness and training and weights, to the use of public space for outdoor dining. I'm aware of the Thai restaurant in Pennant Hills having previously obtained formal permission from Hornsby Council to eat outside in the tiered area of paved seating covered by all the trees there. They said it was incredibly expensive, and so they haven't actually continued to do so. And then recently the state government and certainly Sydney City Council did quite a big push to try and get more outdoor dining because of COVID and the reduced risk of dining outside. And I think it was almost impossible for councils to say no as long as they were complying with reasonable requirements on use of footpaths and things like that. But as we move forward and COVID becomes less of a crisis issue and more of an ongoing management issue, what do councillors think about the concept of outdoor dining in our suburb, whether it's in Pennant Hills, Westleigh, Thornleigh, West Pennant Hills, Hornsby? So that's the general subject area. Sorry, I haven't framed a very tight question, but you've got the gist of it, I'm sure. Starting this time with, was it Janelle last time? So this time it's Monica. I think, Monica, you're up first.
Sure. I like the concept of outdoor dining. It's a nice experience. If we can have more of it, I think it'll draw more people out. It'll give us that sort of European lifestyle, you know, close off a few streets, make it pedestrianised. It creates a vibe, and that's the sort of thing, that's the way I like to dine. So I'm all for it. Thank you.
Monica is Sallianne, or your team, and then Emma, and then Philip. So Sallianne?
Look, the concept of outdoor dining, if that can support the recovery of all our beautiful restaurants, then I'm all for it. And, you know, even working with them on a paid structure basis so that, you know, maybe initially pie in the sky, this is Sallianne talking, you know, the cost is minimal to the proprietor, and then as they develop and gain traction, then you come round and you revisit what the costs would be, because, you know, of course, it's going to create a vibe, it's going to create some connection. We're all dying for connection, but ultimately what we're talking about here is helping business owners recover from the last 2 years.
Thank you, Sallianne. Next up is Emma, and let me just do a quick interlude there. You mentioned some of the other places, and Monica mentioned Europe. I used to live in Lane Cove, and they have some fantastic outdoor dining there. My wife used to live in Concord, and if you go down Majors Bay Road, they just do outdoor dining superbly. But that would be something we could aspire to, in my view. But Emma, what would you like to add?
How can you not love the idea? Yeah, those are great examples. My only caution is that when we were looking at an economic development strategy for the Shire, the consultants came up with the idea of activating our suburbs at nighttime, a nighttime economy. And I had some reservations about it. I thought it was lazy thinking on their part to imagine that every suburb could have a nighttime economy. Because I think for many suburbs, for example, Beecroft, it's just a fact that people would rather take away their food, eat it in the comfort of their own home in front of a movie, rather than hanging out at 9 p.m. in Beecroft. Many restaurants are successful there and have clients at at night, but it's a struggle. So I don't think it's appropriate for every town centre, but it would be superb if it could become a viable prospect for Pennant Hills. I think it would just be wonderful, because we've all enjoyed those experiences, like Monica said, where you can go out and have a lovely time outside and eating beautiful food in a gorgeous place. Pennant Hills has all that potential.
Philip Ruddock, sounds like a perfect segue to you as a Pennant Hills resident.
Heather's not only in West Pennant Hills, she's also married to me and living in Pennant Hills. And occasionally she says to me in Hillcrest Avenue, why can't Chris, who was running the coffee shop, open out into the area adjacent to the trees? And you mentioned the Thai restaurant, the Heritage Cafe already has some eating in that way. And you need, I think, to have that sort of opportunity. But when the business people go out, they say, can we do it? And the council, yes, you can. And this will be the cost. And there is a cost that the council charges. And we're going to have to look at whether that cost is an impediment, I think. Obviously, some of the costs may need to be recouped. You also need to look to ensure that people can still get appropriate ingress and egress to the other facilities. You can't have the footpath totally blocked and people having to walk around the streets. I mean, only recently, what we had in Thornleigh was people parking getting to Domino's and then parking on the footpath, and then the safety of people being impeded because the cars are on the footpath and the pedestrians had to go and walk on the road. Safety issues can be real and substantial, and they need to be considered. We are getting other ventures. In Fisher Avenue, the unique tea shop has opened up. You're getting the truck, the Calcutta Express or whatever it is, selling Indian food. There is a lot more emerging, and I think it will, but we need to think about it in a planned way, and I'm sure that will happen in the new council.
I think that makes sense. It's a bit of one of those balance exercises. So, Janelle, I think you're last on this subject.
This is one that's very close to my heart. I spent a lot of time as a town centre manager and economic development manager researching and writing an outdoor dining policy for the city that I worked for. So I have done research on this, and in the name of research, personally funded, gone to lots and lots of outdoor dining restaurants arguing that it's all research, which is always a good thing. Look, there's loads of things to talk about here, but one of the critical things is there's a
Can I join your team?
There's a hell of a difference between suburban outdoor dining outside your little local coffee shop and big, large-scale outdoor dining in somewhere like Hornsby Mall, for instance, and then the tourism areas like Galston or Brooklyn, where it is a completely different beast again.
Right.
So, you know, it is a really different thing. And I think you've got to look at different considerations for each of those different elements. But there is lots of really good things that can be delivered. It activates a local area. It can provide wonderful greening, you know, mobile planters that grow herbs that can be used by the restaurants. There's some gorgeous things that can be done, lovely street carts that are wheeled out. But there's considerations that you need to build into any policy, and that's about access. It's about cleansing. You've got to have good presentation and really sound furniture. You've got to find storage for it when it's not being used that doesn't look appalling. There's nothing worse than looking at a great stack of chairs stuck in the corner of the public domain because they're not being utilised. So there's a lot of considerations there about what can be done. And you have to take into account the needs of families, mums and dads with prams, people with a mobility impairment or disability, and seniors. So you can't have something that is going to impede free access to the public space. There are great policies out there and there's loads of good things to be learnt, and I think it could really activate many of our particularly smaller town centres and really deliver a great outcome for the economy and the community. Thanks.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm looking at all of the questions in the chat and suggesting that all of the candidates have a quick skim, particularly while someone else is talking. Monica, I'm going to ask you to lead off with another just summary of your platform, but also the opportunity to address the issues that are in the chat that we might have resolved, or that are variations on what we've already discussed, but we haven't fully discussed. So everyone is going to get 3 minutes. It's going to start with Monica, then Sallianne, then Emma, then Philip, then Janelle. No, hang on, we just finished with Janelle, so I should change that. Anyway, no, we'll do that again, that's fine. Yeah, there's some interesting issues in the chat. It seems to, I haven't raised them as a public thing because some of them seem very, very specific. But as councillors or intending to be councillors, you can feel free to read them and or raise them. And look, the elephant in the room that we've tried to address is, for want of a better word, inappropriate development. I've seen that Vince, who's not in this ward, but is pretty interesting campaign out there, sticking his yellow signs beside the development in Beecroft and describing it as inappropriate. And various speakers have already talked about the impact of SEPPs and how our council struggles to cope when a lot of the control is taken from us. So all of those issues in particular, will certainly give your usual pitch, but address anything that you think we've underdone or address anything in the chat that you want to. And you have 3 minutes each. We'll give you a bell at 2 and a bell at 2.5, and then we will wrap up by about 9:30. So Monica, if you can start us rolling, and then Sallianne, then Emma, then Philip, then Janelle.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. So I think I'll start on the inappropriate development first. The only way that you can stop inappropriate development is to have enough people in the community working against it, and to having a vision for what they want the community to look like. So the state government's always going to be looking for places where to drop the next bomb, and they're going to look for the easy places where people aren't connected. So I think you know, we've got 30 people here in the community of how many that actually live in this area. There's always the same people that are turning up. We need more people turning up. We need more people connected into what's happening before and being active before something gets dumped on them. So I think that's a priority. I think there needs to be done more on planning for risk mitigation. I've said it before. I think our council buildings need to be multifunctional, multi-purpose. They need to be off-grid. We need to have planning and preparation for storms, power outages, floods, fires, networks in place. You know, if council staff can't get to work, we need a community that's, you know, that's networked and knows each other and can turn to each other for the support and the resilience that they need to get through any hardships that face us, because there are going to be hardships, there are going to be disruptions. We've had disruptions every year for the last 3 or 4 years. So we don't know what's going to face us, and I think we're going to be stronger and more resilient if we have things in plan and in mind. We also, and in that same sense, you know, heat mitigation, I think our civic areas need to have, you know, sprinkler systems that can cool the ambient air down. We need to be thinking about more trees, more public spaces, more open spaces that people can take shelter in instead of being in a house. I think another thing about development is the type of development we permit. It's got to be really, you know, I'd like to see the land parcel be more green and less house. And waste is a huge thing for me. I think we can do a lot better on waste, but I think I'm running out of time, so I'll stop there. Am I?
Thank you, Monica. Okay, so next on the list is Sallianne or your team.
Look, I just want to keep it really simple. I think what we really come down to is communication and transparency. And while I have not been on council for the last 4 years, I have a proven track record of the last 4 years of communicating and providing true transparency with the work that I've done with some major charities in our local area and, of course, right across New South Wales. When it comes to resilience, we are a phenomenally resilient community, and we are surrounded by some incredible agencies who work specifically in those areas. And having worked in disaster welfare for the last 6 months and in bushfire and flood recovery, I know that all these agencies have the plans in place and that they are distributing to relevant councils when situations arise. So I know that if we work in consultation with adjoining agencies, we will have those plans that that was spoken about. My aim is to keep the community aware of everything that's going on, to be transparent, to share the good, absolutely, but to share the ugly as well, and to process the ugly and to process the hard bits, and make sure that we work together as a team, as a community, to create an environment that we all want to live in, play in, work in. So thank you very much for this evening, and thank you for the latitude of including these incredible guys either side of me. You know, one of the really key things about the approach that we've taken this time is not a singular approach, but a team approach. And it's been really important that we wanted to share just who we are as a team as well as individuals tonight. So thank you for that latitude.
Thank you very much, Sallianne. Very, very happy to let you present as a team instead of an individual. I'm about to ask Emma to do the same, but I'll just give a quick ad break. This show is put on by the Westleigh Progress Association and the Pennant Hills District Civic Trust, which is actually in the process of merging with the Thornleigh Residents Group. There's a lot of people on this who may or may not already be members of those 3 organisations. It only costs you $20 a year to be a member. It really helps the community for people to be part of that, know what's going on. It's so much better to be involved in potential comments on developments or comments on plans or things that are going on before they happen rather than when the concrete's already poured. And it's very useful so you can know what's going on. It's always a great idea to be part of your local community and to be rubbing shoulders with the people who are trying to improve it and make it better. They're the sort of friends you want to have. So big plug, can you please go to the various websites, Pennant Hills District Civic Trust and Westleigh Progress Association, and sign up. Okay, next over to Emma.
Yeah, here. I've seen the benefits for communities where there is a really strong civic trust speaking up for residents, particularly about development. And I've seen areas where there isn't a really strong residents group. And the outcomes are just very, very different. I know, for example, the Beecroft Civic Trust was incredibly active when the 5 stories Beecroft Place were being planned and executed, and they got some really significant changes made that have benefited the whole community, and certainly the aesthetics are much improved. So civic trusts, yeah, you do a vital job. It's all volunteer led. It's all resident led, and I'm incredibly grateful to everybody who gives up so much time to make it all happen, including obviously tonight.
Emma, we agree that Beecroft Cheltenham Civic Trust is awesome.
Yeah. I just thought I'd quickly touch on something I'm really passionate about that we haven't talked about at all, and it was raised in one of the questions, and that's waste. We're producing a whole lot more of it, particularly during lockdown. The number of skips that the community recycling centre now deals with on a Saturday is quite extraordinary. If you've seen them backed up, it's usually more than 50 after a weekend, and they are full of cardboard. And that's because we're all getting fabulous deliveries and you know, spending a lot of money on our homes rather than setting off to Bali. But waste is a huge issue for our council. It's the thing we spend most on as a council, but it's the biggest contract. And it's the one thing that council really has to do well, because if we stuff up waste services and we don't provide residents with efficient and clean and reliable services, then what is a council for? That really is fundamental. So the question was about FOGO and putting organic waste into our greens bin. And yes, it's inevitable and it will come, and all councils in Sydney will need to do it. I think it's a good move because not everybody can have a compost bin. We know that a huge amount of methane is released when people put all their food waste into landfill. And I've seen it for myself, as has Janelle and other councillors. We went out to Goulburn and had a look at those railway trucks with their shipping containers full of our waste being dumped into a hole in the ground, and it's not pretty. So Hornsby Council needs to do a whole lot better with waste management, but we need money from the state government to do it, because councils are currently starved of the waste levy. State government collects $4 billion over the last 5 years, but 2/3 of it goes into general revenues for the state government. It's not spent on waste. So it'd be great to see council do some more really effective and strong lobbying along with other councils to get more of that waste money, because we can't properly get our diversion rates down, and we can't properly do really great education programs without more cash. So waste to me is an incredibly important issue this next term of council, and as you know, I'm passionate about it, and yeah, would love to keep working to address that issue.
Thank you very much, Emma. Philip, Ruddock, any comments on inappropriate development, other things that have been covered today that you think should be covered in a little bit more detail, or anything someone has mentioned in the chat, and also anything you'd like to add as your personal wrap-up?
Well, thank you very much. Can I thank our friends at Westleigh, Pennant Hills, and now incorporating Thornleigh. I appreciate very much your chairmanship tonight and the way in which you've been able to conduct this meeting. For me, I came to this after 43 years in public life. And I came to it because I believe passionately in service for the community in which you live. And for me, what was happening in terms of what I saw as inappropriate development needed to be addressed. And I've made that point very strongly about the way in which, in trying to meet certain housing targets, Asquith, Mount Colah, parts of West Pennant Hills, Beecroft, if I can include it in that, Thornleigh, apartments were pushed that weren't necessarily in keeping with the nature of the area. We're still under pressure. And our view is that in meeting the targets that are going to be expressed, we can do it through a properly planned Hornsby CBD. And we've all spoken about how we can get appropriate canopy, setbacks, developments that can be much more conducive. And I, following on the service of my father who established the Bushland Shire, want to ensure that we maintain this community's integrity and its unique character. And that may mean that we have to speak positively to government to get the sort of outcomes that we want. The state government has agreed that targeting Hornsby for our development needs will enable us to accommodate much more of the heritage and special character of the other areas of the Shire. I come to this task with a very, very, I think, impressive team of supporters. In Awood, we have two experienced councillors, Nathan Tilbury, Warren Waddell. We have a very keen young lady firefighter from Cowan. You've seen Sallianne and Martin and Daniel tonight as part of the B Ward team. And in C Ward, we have an outstanding Dr. Verity Greenwood, a former policeman, lecturer at Macquarie University, an outstanding potential contributor. We have some cultural diversity with Srini Pilamari, a very significant member of the Indian community. And we have a lady artist who is very accomplished as a third member of the team. I'm asking for support for a Liberal team that will work cohesively together. I've demonstrated over a period of time that I intend to be a leader, bringing people together to work for the benefit of our community. I ask for support to be re-elected as Mayor, and I hope I can deliver for the Shire, which is my passion. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Philip. Janelle, you're up last for the speakers.
Thank you. And I'll just put a little message in the chat for anything that I might not cover off. Just in responding to some of the questions that came up in the chat that hadn't been addressed. The issue of FOGO and organics is not in our current proposal, and as Emma mentioned, we had looked at that and carefully considered it, but unfortunately in this round of this particular contract it wasn't possible. What I'm looking forward to is I know the state government is undertaking some work with a state policy and some support for councils in the area of FOGO. I'm hoping that what that will mean is that some of that money that they like to keep from the waste levy will actually be returned to councils through a FOGO program, and we can see something happening there. So I think that one is a stay tuned to this spot to find out some more. Another lady asked the issue of what council can do to support shoestring sessions on a budget to get some cultural things happening in particular areas, food trucks, etc. Council has done quite a few of those things during COVID before the strict lockdown, and I'm hoping that we'll see those return again. We've certainly got some good plans for Hornsby to see some things happen there, and I know we've done some other things in Pennant Hills. I think the use of food trucks and the sunset sessions that are run regularly are a great thing, and I'd hope to see some more of that happening soon. Another question was about the LEP and what you would like to see changed. As a general planning comment, I'd like to see councils given more power over our local planning, being able to appropriately protect and conserve our area. This is about issues of heritage, but it's also about childcare developments, which I know Emma and I have both spoken about those issues, and also about where seniors living is planned. All of these larger scale developments have a massive impact on residential areas. They're a cause of great concern when we see blocks being bought up for childcare centres and seniors living, and I'd just like to see that gets addressed in an LEP change and in that change to planning for councils. I can't let it go past without mentioning the pedestrian bridge at Thornleigh. I'd really like to see the opportunity where we're doing this work, the state government's doing this work on Thornleigh Station to address those really dangerous stairs that are there on that footbridge. It's a great chance to get in and really do a good redevelopment and renovation work there to fix that. And look, I support a Shire that is inclusive and addresses the needs of seniors and people with a disability, and I hope that you will see that I bring a great deal of experience to the table and hope to be part of this new council where we can continue this work we've started in a collegiate and collaborative way to address the needs of Hornsby. Thanks everyone.
Thank you very much, Janelle. Thank you very much, all of the candidates. We started this session with an acknowledgement of country, and I'm here tonight with Michael Rosettenstein, the current president of the Pennant Hills District Trust, and we are both squatting, sharing the room with Dana Lodjudis, who's the president of the Westleigh Progress Association. I'd like to thank Dana for hosting us and hosting this session, and just do a quick hand over to you to say thank you.
Yes, thank you everyone for attending tonight. Thank you very much to Paul Souter, who has done all the legwork for this and got everything and everybody together and on board to get this organised. The Westleigh Progress Association has a Facebook page and a website. So there's contact details there, membership forms, the bank details for bank deposits if you'd like to join. We meet twice a year in March and November, so our next meeting is still some time off, though we have had extraordinary meetings if there's been a pressing issue. I'd like to wish all the candidates good luck for the 4th of December. And if you'd like to.
So thank you everyone for joining us. It is one of the fun things about a healthy democracy that we can hear from everyone, and thank you for all the people that have posted comments on the chat. Yeah, it's a great thing that we can elect our representatives, and a great thing that we have polite people who are allowed to agree to disagree sometimes. So thank you very much for all of your support. See you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.